Welcome, beautiful Sigma ladies. She wasn't born to fit in. She was born to short-circuit the system, quietly. You ever meet a woman who makes you question if she's observing your soul or decoding it like encrypted data? She's not cold. She's not shy. She's not even mysterious. She's something far rarer and far more unsettling. A Sigma female who is neurodivergent. Here's the twist. According to recent studies, nearly 1 in 5 women may fall somewhere on the neurodivergent spectrum, but most of them fly under the radar, especially the ones who don't talk much, don't play nice, and don't follow scripts. They blend in just enough to pass, until you realize they're mentally operating on a frequency that leaves most people buffering. And no, she's not just the quiet girl with strong boundaries cliché. That's basic. This woman doesn't just break the mold. She questions who made the mold, what system funded it, and why it even exists. In a world addicted to emotional emojis, oversharing, and groupthink, she's still trying to figure out why people enjoy brunch small talk and willingly watch reality TV. She doesn't struggle to connect. She just doesn't see the point of pretending. Her idea of small talk? Do you ever feel like time isn't linear but emotional? Yeah, try dropping that in a room full of influencers. So buckle up, because these aren't your generic, she's not like other girls, bullet points. These are 12 brutally honest, mind-altering reasons why Sigma females are neurodivergent, and how their very existence challenges the sanity of a hypersocial, dopamine-dependent society. Let's begin. Number 1, she doesn't just think differently. She perceives differently. She doesn't just think differently. She perceives differently. And that right there is what most people miss when they try to understand a Sigma female who's neurodivergent. They think it's about quirks, habits, or some personality trait that makes her unique. But it goes way deeper than that. Her brain isn't just wired to process information. It's wired to absorb and filter reality in a way most people can't comprehend. She can walk into a room and instantly feel tension others are laughing through. She notices how someone's voice dips half a tone lower when they lie. She picks up the micro-hesitation in someone's eyes before they speak. She doesn't try to. Her nervous system just registers everything. The volume, the texture, the energy. It's like living with the sensory equivalent of surround sound in a world where everyone else is still using a broken radio. That's why she gets drained so easily. Not because she's weak or antisocial, but because her brain is absorbing too much data in real time. Most people can shut out noise, fake smiles, background chatter. She can't. Her mind processes even what others ignore, and when she tries to explain that to people, they either label her too intense, too sensitive, or just off. She sees patterns in people long before they reveal themselves. She picks up contradictions, unspoken motives, and emotional mismatches so fast it makes her seem paranoid. But she's not paranoid. She's just tuned into signals others don't even notice exist. This kind of perception makes the world feel both fascinating and exhausting. She can be deeply moved by something as simple as a tone of voice, or crushed by an energy shift no one else feels. People think she's overreacting. In reality, she's reacting to a layer of life they're blind to. And because she can't unfeel or unsee what's clearly there, she often walks alone, not because she wants to, but because everyone else is sleepwalking through a reality she's wide awake in. That's not being weird. That's a completely different operating system. And once you understand that, you stop trying to fix her. You start realizing she was never broken. Number 2, she processes emotion like code. Cold first, then deep. She isn't emotionally cold, she's emotionally encrypted. When something intense happens, her first instinct isn't to cry, scream, or react, it's to analyze. She doesn't bypass emotion, she routes it through reason. Her system demands context before response, meaning she pauses to decode what others would immediately feel. And that pause, it gets her judged. To the average person, especially those who wear their hearts on their sleeves, this delay looks robotic. It feels like she's distant, detached, or even cold-hearted. But that's not it at all. Her mind is simply built to understand before reacting. She doesn't jump into emotional chaos just because everyone else is spiraling. She's scanning for patterns, meanings, consequences. That logical barrier protects her from emotional manipulation, but it also isolates her. This mode of emotional processing is deeply misunderstood. People expect warmth on demand, comfort with speed, and empathy that mirrors their own. The Sigma female doesn't operate that way. She won't fake a reaction just to make others comfortable. She feels, but with precision. Her emotions come in layers, slow, heavy, rich, and they hit after the facts have been examined. That kind of delayed emotional impact can make her seem indifferent in the moment, only for her to quietly break down a week later when the full weight lands. What's dangerous is that she often gets punished for her process. She's told she's heartless, emotionless, not a people person. In truth, she's processing more than most. The difference is, she doesn't externalize it until it's fully unpacked, and by then, the world's already moved on. This logic-first wiring helps her in high-stress environments. While others are reacting, she's calculating. It gives her clarity, control, and an edge in situations where emotion clouds judgment. But it also makes her the odd one out in emotional circles. People don't know how to read her, so they label her as cold. But she's not cold. She's deep. So deep, in fact, that her feelings don't come as fireworks. They arrive as earthquakes, silent, slow building, and impossible to ignore once they hit. Number 3, she forgets to perform being human. She doesn't forget how to be human. She forgets how to perform it. The scripted stuff. The nodding, the smiling, the polite laughs at jokes that aren't funny. The constant, unspoken pressure to behave in a way that makes others feel comfortable, even when it feels unnatural. For the Sigma female who's neurodivergent, these social behaviors aren't automatic. They're learned, rehearsed, and sometimes reluctantly deployed like a foreign phrase she barely memorized. It's not because she's cold or arrogant or emotionally absent. Far from it. She feels deeply, sometimes more than the people performing empathy on loop. But the idea of constantly signaling that empathy with the right tone, the right expression, the right timing, it doesn't come naturally, and because it doesn't, she often opts out. Not to offend, but to conserve energy and stay aligned with her inner self. To her, most people walk around like actors in a play that never ends. Smile here, laugh now, apologize even if you're not sorry. Compliment that dress, even though you're thinking about space travel or political corruption. This artificial dance exhausts her. Not because she can't do it, but because it feels like lying with your whole body, and her system rejects dishonesty, even the socially acceptable kind. She has to remind herself to do the things others don't think about. Eye contact? That's not connection to her. That's sensory overload. Smiling? That's not always joy. It's a tool people use to blend in. She often forgets these steps because she's too focused on what's real, the conversation's substance, the energy behind someone's words, the emotional truth being masked by all the surface-level signals. This isn't about being socially awkward. It's about being neurologically designed to value authenticity over performance. The Sigma female doesn't dislike people, she just doesn't understand why everyone's pretending all the time. And in a world obsessed with appearances, her refusal to put on the emotional costume makes her feel alien, misunderstood, sometimes even punished. But what most don't realize is this. Her raw presence, though quiet and unscripted, is more honest than any performance they've ever applauded. Number 4. She self-corrects before the world notices. She doesn't wait for the world to point out when she's off. She already knows. The moment her tone shifts slightly too sharp, the second her response is a beat too late, the instant she says something too blunt or too abstract for the room, she catches it. Internally, instantly. That sharp awareness isn't learned. It's built in. The Sigma female who's neurodivergent runs constant diagnostics on herself in every social space she enters. While others are fully immersed in conversation, she's half present and half monitoring, not because she's insecure, but because her mind naturally scans for misalignment. Did she speak too much? Too little? Did she interrupt? Did she come across too intense? Did her face show too much neutrality when others were smiling? It's not self-doubt, it's self-auditing. And it's exhausting. Because while most people coast through social interactions on autopilot, she's doing manual override every 5 seconds. She tweaks herself before others even register something's off. She softens a stare. She adds a smile. She nods at the right moment, even if she had to remind herself to. She corrects her posture, adjusts her vocal rhythm, restrains her impulses to go too deep, too fast. It's a full-time job running social software that wasn't made for her operating system. But here's the brutal part. No one ever sees it. They just assume she's normal enough. They don't see the thousands of micro-adjustments she makes in real time just to keep the room from reading her as strange, rude, too much, or too quiet. The world rewards her for functioning while having no idea how hard she's working to do it. Sometimes she envies those who are blissfully unaware of their social missteps, who can say the wrong thing, offend someone, dominate a conversation, and keep moving. She doesn't have that luxury. Her awareness is too sharp. And that same awareness that helps her blend in when necessary is also what keeps her chronically drained. It's not the people that tire her out. It's the constant calibration. And in that quiet, endless self-management, she doesn't just survive the social world, she endures it. Alone, unseen, and utterly aware. Number 5, she doesn't seek belonging, she monitors it like an outsider. She can be right there in the middle of it all, smiling, nodding, engaging, yet still feel like she's watching a movie she was accidentally cast in. She doesn't feel a natural sense of belonging just because she's included. Inclusion isn't enough. She studies the dynamics, the flow of energy, the invisible rules. She watches how people speak in code, how they signal approval, how laughter follows hierarchy. It's not that she doesn't want to belong. It's that she can't force the feeling, no matter how well she plays the part. To most people, connection is instinctual. You find your people, you vibe, you click. For her, it's more complex. She doesn't fall into connection, she examines it. Why does this group value that person? What unspoken rule just shifted the mood? What's the real meaning behind that compliment? Her brain logs it all, like she's studying a culture that technically includes her, but never really feels like hers. Even when people love her, she wonders if they love who she actually is, or just the version she edited for public use. That version, the adjusted one, is polite, socially fluent, and just detached enough not to make anyone uncomfortable. But her true self? That version is selective, slow to warm, deeply observant, sometimes blunt, always scanning. It's a side of her most people never get to meet, and she's learned not to offer it too freely. She doesn't chase after groups or friendships with desperation, not because she's arrogant, but because her baseline is outsider mode. It's what feels safest. She'll be part of things, yes, but only if she can remain on the edge, quietly decoding the social mechanics, free to leave when the atmosphere turns performative or fake. It's not loneliness, it's autonomy. She doesn't want to melt into the crowd. She wants to understand why the crowd moves the way it does. And if she does form real connection, it's because she's chosen to step out of observation and into something genuine, rare, raw, and completely unscripted. But until then, she remains in the room, but slightly apart, present but analyzing, seen but always watching. Number 6, she hides her depth because people weaponize it. She's not quiet because she has nothing to say. She's quiet because she's learned what happens when she says too much. When she shares what she sees, really sees, it unsettles people. Her insights aren't shallow observations or feel-good wisdom. They're sharp, surgical, and often too honest for comfort. And when someone's not ready for truth, they don't thank her for it. They turn on her for it. She's had her intuition dismissed, until it turned out to be right. She's had her emotional intelligence downplayed, until someone else repeated it with more charm and got credit. And worst of all, she's had her vulnerability used like ammunition. What she shared in trust came back later as a weapon. So now, she protects herself the only way she knows how, by concealing her depth. She'll play quiet, polite, unassuming. She'll nod while people explain things she already understands in greater depth than they ever will. She'll keep her real thoughts locked away, not because she's insecure, but because she's learned that not everyone deserves access to that part of her. People always say they want honesty until she gives it. They say they admire deep thinkers until her thoughts dig up things they haven't faced in themselves. They call her intense, too much, overthinking, when in reality, she's just clear. And clarity scares people who survive by illusion. So she learned to disarm by disengaging. Her silence isn't shyness, it's strategy. It's her way of saying, I'm not going to hand you anything you'll twist later. She's not shrinking, she's shielding. There are entire oceans behind her stillness, currents of thought, perception, emotion, brilliance, but those oceans stay guarded now, because too many times people swam in her depth and then blamed her when they couldn't breathe. It's not that she stopped trusting herself, it's that she stopped trusting how people handle the truth she carries. So she keeps the most powerful parts of herself under lock and key. And if you want access, you'll have to prove you won't turn her depth into your defense. Number 7. She overthinks because the world underthinks. She doesn't sit around replaying conversations and scanning every detail because she's bored or insecure. She does it because she's trained herself to see the variables most people ignore. While others rush into situations on impulse or emotion, she slows things down, mentally, and runs the long game. It's not spiraling, it's precision. It's her brain doing damage control before damage even happens. People love to throw around the word overthinking, like it's some flaw, like it means she's dramatic, indecisive, or paranoid. But what they call overthinking is actually her being thorough, because she's watched people make reckless decisions, speak without thinking, dive into relationships without discernment, and trust systems that were never built to protect them. And when it all falls apart, they act shocked. She's not shocked. She saw it coming, and that's exactly why she thinks ahead. Her mind is wired to ask, what are the consequences? Who benefits here? What's not being said? What's the hidden cost of this easy choice? That's not fear. It's pattern recognition. It's her trying to stay 10 steps ahead in a world that praises people for walking blind. This kind of cognitive intensity doesn't turn off. Even when she wants to relax, her brain's still scanning, looking for inconsistencies, trying to protect her peace, running potential outcomes like simulations. And yes, it can be tiring. But what's more exhausting is watching the world glamorize underthinking, mistaking speed for strength, loudness for truth, surface-level connection for real intimacy. She's not overreacting, she's just not underanalyzing. And yes, sometimes it isolates her, because when she brings up things that others didn't notice or didn't want to see, she gets labeled as negative, anxious, or intense. But she's not intense. She's just aware. And awareness, especially in a world addicted to shortcuts, feels like a threat. She'd rather carry the mental weight of preparation than deal with the fallout of blind trust. Because if she's going to suffer, it won't be from carelessness. It'll be from knowing she did everything possible to see clearly before stepping forward. Number 8. Her emotional range is too complex for surface people. She doesn't do emotional basics. She doesn't toggle between happy and sad like a cartoon character with 2 buttons. Her emotional landscape is nuanced, layered, often contradictory, and always real. She can feel deep sadness and strange peace at the same time. She can laugh while carrying pain, feel love without wanting closeness, grieve something that never even happened. That's not confusion. That's clarity in its rawest form. Most people want emotions to fit neatly into categories. They want tears to mean sadness, silence to mean anger, and smiles to mean joy. But for her, emotions aren't signals. They're systems. They overlap, they echo, they bleed into each other like blended colors. She can feel nostalgic rage, missing a past that hurt. She can feel joyful detachment, lightness without attachment. She can feel hopeful grief, mourning while still believing in something better. But here's the problem. Most people aren't equipped to handle that. They need simple labels to stay emotionally comfortable. So when she expresses complexity, they shrink from it. They call her weird. They say she's too much. They act like her feelings are broken just because they're not convenient. But her emotions aren't chaotic, they're accurate. She's just tuned into frequencies that shallow people haven't learned to hear. So over time she adapts, she shares less, masks more. Not to fake anything, but to avoid the lazy misunderstandings. Because the truth is, when you live with emotional intelligence that advanced, you stop trying to be understood by people who only feel what's trending. She doesn't seek emotional simplicity. She honors the full, messy, contradictory spectrum of human experience. And that scares people who need things neat and tidy to function. But she knows this. Real strength isn't suppressing emotions, it's carrying complexity without breaking. And while most are busy trying to feel one thing at a time, she's out here navigating entire emotional constellations, quietly, gracefully, and completely alone. Number 9. She was misdiagnosed with too much her whole life. All her life, people didn't try to understand her. They tried to adjust her. She was too intense when she asked deep questions adults couldn't answer. Too quiet when she preferred watching to small talk. Too blunt when she told the truth without sugar. And too aloof when she didn't fake interest in gossip, groupthink, or emotional theatrics. But none of that meant she was broken. It meant she was different, in ways the world didn't know how to handle. She wasn't emotionally cold. She was just uninterested in putting on the performative mask expected of women. The constant smiling, the agreeable tone, the polite curiosity, the emotional labor for everyone else's comfort. She didn't play the game, so the world called her difficult. In reality, she was just done performing. Instead of seeing her self-containment as intelligence, people framed it as a problem. Instead of recognizing her calm detachment as focus, they labeled it as disinterest. Instead of understanding her honesty as clarity, they called her rude. She wasn't too much. She was too real for a world that runs on surface interaction and curated femininity. What no one realized was that she wasn't rebelling. She was masking, because when you're neurodivergent and female, you get hit with two storms at once. Society expects you to be emotionally available and socially agreeable, all while subtly discrediting any behavior that breaks the mold. So she adapted. She mirrored. She studied people. She tried to soften her edges, but it never really fit. Because it wasn't her nature, it was their conditioning. And the truth is, she wasn't diagnosed. She was dismissed. Dismissed for being hard to read when really she was just private. Dismissed for not liking crowds when really she was overstimulated. Dismissed for zoning out when really her mind was on another level. She wasn't difficult. She was decoded wrong. And now that she knows that, she doesn't apologize for her intensity. She doesn't shrink her silence. She doesn't dilute her truth. She's not too much. She's exactly enough for the life she's meant to live, not the role the world tried to cast her in. Number 10. She was never conditioned to be liked, so she became real. While other girls were learning to read facial cues, smile on cue, and soften their truths for approval, she was somewhere else, mentally and emotionally unplugged from that whole system. It wasn't that she refused to be likable. It's that no one ever gave her the manual, and deep down, she wouldn't have followed it anyway. She missed the conditioning most women were fed on repeat. Be nice, be soft, be agreeable, be wanted. And because she missed it, she never internalized it. And because she never internalized it, she became something rare, authentic without apology. She didn't mold herself to be digestible. She didn't rehearse social cues or coat her opinions in honey. She didn't need to be liked to feel valid. From an early age, she realized something most people spend a lifetime avoiding. Being liked is overrated when it comes at the cost of being real. And that realization, it made her quietly powerful. People often say she's hard to get close to. That's because she doesn't perform relatability. She doesn't fake laughter or force warmth just to win people over. She doesn't flirt with approval or beg for belonging. She shows up exactly as she is, unfiltered, observant, sometimes intense, always honest. And to the masses trained to prioritize comfort over truth, that's jarring. She sees how other women have been taught to twist themselves into palatable versions just to survive social environments, dimming their fire, inflating their niceness, downplaying their depth. But she never had that script downloaded. She wasn't groomed into performative femininity. She wasn't pushed into playing harmless. And because of that, she stands out, like a signal that hasn't been scrambled. There's a quiet rebellion in not being conditioned to please, a defiance in choosing to be clear over being charming. And that defiance, it gave her something unshakable: integrity. The kind that doesn't crumble in rooms built on shallow praise. She was never taught to be likable, and so she became unmistakably herself, which is exactly why people either fear her or deeply respect her. There's no in-between when a woman refuses to play the game. Number 11. She gets bored of conversations in under 3 minutes. She doesn't hate people. She just hates the loop. The predictable cycle of surface talk that feels like déjà vu with different faces. Small talk isn't just dull to her, it's mentally suffocating. She hears the question, "So what do you do?" And her brain is already 5 exits ahead, predicting the script, the fake chuckle, the socially correct nod. It's not arrogance, it's pattern recognition on overdrive. Her neurodivergent mind absorbs data fast, scans outcomes instantly, and gets mentally restless when the input is repetitive. Most people find comfort in predictable conversations. She finds them draining. It's not that she thinks she's better than anyone. It's that her mind is wired for depth, not default. She wants to talk about the contradictions in human nature, the flaws in belief systems, the psychology behind everyday choices, not the weather, not who got engaged, not what someone ate on vacation. And because those surface-level topics are everywhere, she often finds herself mentally checking out mid-sentence. People misread her silence as disinterest or arrogance. But the truth is, she's already explored every branch of that conversation in her head before the other person even finishes their second sentence. She knows where it's going, how it'll end, and that there's nothing new to be discovered in it. That's not rudeness. That's a brain that's bored of reruns. This is also why she lights up when someone surprises her intellectually. When a person breaks the script, says something raw, or offers a viewpoint that forces her to pause, that's rare, and it's exhilarating. It pulls her back in. It earns her attention in a way small talk never could. She doesn't want to be entertained. She wants to be engaged. She wants friction, curiosity, challenge. Something that doesn't feel like everyone's just repeating social lines they heard from someone else. So yeah, if your conversation feels like a rerun, her mind will leave before her body does. Not because she's rude, but because her brain doesn't do autopilot. It needs meaning, not noise. Number 12. She detaches as a survival mechanism, not a flaw. When things get too loud, externally or internally, she doesn't lash out. She shuts down. Not out of spite, not to punish anyone, but because her system is overloaded, and detachment is her brain's version of hitting the reset button. It's not emotional dysfunction, it's self-preservation. The world moves fast, speaks loud, and expects constant availability. But her nervous system can't run on that schedule. So when it all piles up, she doesn't perform distress. She retreats into stillness. People misread it all the time. They say she's cold, distant, unfeeling, but the truth is, she's processing. Her inner world is running diagnostics, scanning for what's draining her, what needs to be shut off, and how to restore balance. That kind of recalibration requires silence, space, zero performance. And sometimes that means ghosting the room, the conversation, the relationship, for a while or for good. What people don't understand is this. Emotional detachment isn't a glitch in her system, it is the system. It's how she avoids internal collapse. It's how she keeps herself from snapping under pressure or faking composure when she's falling apart inside. Her mind doesn't explode, it unplugs. That's not weakness, that's built-in wisdom. She's not passive-aggressive. She's not trying to make a scene, she's trying not to make one. By pulling away, she's protecting her peace from unnecessary conflict, chaos, or overstimulation. And when she finally returns, it's not because she got over it. It's because she finally had space to process it without an audience. The world expects women to over-explain, to be emotionally available on demand, to always stay plugged into the emotional grid. But her neurodivergence refuses to run on that programming. She doesn't broadcast her burnout. She just slips into quiet. And for the people who need constant emotional access to feel connected, that silence can feel like abandonment. But it isn't. It's a lifeline to herself. Because if she doesn't detach from the world when it overwhelms her, she'll detach from herself completely. And that's a cost she's no longer willing to pay. They called her too much, too distant, too intense, too strange. But never once did they ask why. That's because the world isn't built to understand neurodivergent women. It's built to correct them, to trim their edges, to mute their depth, to shape them into palatable versions of femininity that smile on command, feel on cue, and perform emotional labor without question. But she doesn't play that game. Not because she's rebellious, but because her wiring makes pretense impossible. Her mind doesn't obey the usual social rhythms, it questions them. Her emotions don't fit inside binaries, they transcend them. Her presence doesn't seek belonging, it observes it. And when it all becomes too much, she doesn't explode, she disappears. Because her silence isn't absence, it's strategy, it's survival. She wasn't raised to be liked, so she became real. She wasn't taught to belong, so she learned how to stand alone. She doesn't chase conversations that don't feed her, roles that don't fit her, or people who can't meet her where she actually lives. And for that, they've labeled her difficult, broken, cold, but she's none of those things. She's rare. She's layered. She's dangerously self-aware. Her neurodivergence isn't a flaw. It's a filtration system. It keeps her from settling into shallow living. It shields her from fake connections. It guides her through a world addicted to performance with an inner compass calibrated to truth. And while that can feel lonely, it also makes her unshakable. Because at the end of the day, she doesn't need to be understood by everyone, just fully lived in by herself. So, to every Sigma female out there quietly navigating life with intensity, logic, depth, and detachment, don't shrink, don't soften, don't apologize. You were never too much. You were just always too real for people pretending to be human. If this spoke to something deep inside you, something the world keeps misunderstanding or dismissing, then don't let it stop here. Hit that subscribe button and become part of a space where your depth isn't a burden, it's a superpower. We're building a community of minds that don't fit the mold, and that's exactly the point. Like this video if it lit a fire in you. Comment below. We want to hear your voice, your story, your truth. And share this with someone who's been mislabeled, misread, or underestimated their whole life. They need to know. They're not alone. They're just ahead. This isn't just content. It's connection for those who never quite belonged, so don't just watch, join us.